Just ahead, the fallout continues for Bud Light amid an ongoing customer boycott. Now, the company plans to provide financial assistance to its wholesalers and distributors. Hear what else they're doing to win customers back. Stay with us. In other business news, the company behind the beer Bud Light is promising to give back to distributors after plunging sales amid an ongoing customer boycott. Anheuser-Busch says it will provide financial assistance to wholesalers, reimburse fuel costs for distributors' trucks, and launch a new ad campaign. The company has been at the center of a heated backlash ever since it teamed up with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney for a sweepstakes contest and a custom Bud Light can. Bud Light sales have dipped by a quarter year over year, and now, for the first time in 2 decades, Bud Light is no longer the top-selling beer in the United States, losing its top spot to Modelo Especial last month. Joining me now is Peter Shankman. He's a branding and social media consultant. Peter, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this. Now, this isn't simply just a change in Americans' taste buds. What do you make of this saga of suds playing out?
So it was the worst of all possible combinations in the respect that what they did in itself wasn't a terrible thing, right? It didn't go and ruin Bud Light forever. The problem was the second it happened, Bud Light immediately backtracked. And they immediately said, well, maybe this wasn't a good idea. And so now they've alienated both people who didn't like the original team up as well as people who did, right? So now you've sort of hurt both parties. And they haven't really shown signs of recovering from that yet. The good thing, though, America does have a very short attention span, as does the American consumer. This is not going to last throughout the summer, I don't believe. We have July 4th coming up in a few weeks, and people are still going to go back to what they know.
We were just showing some of the video that was posted by that influencer, Dylan Mulvaney. That Bud Light can that was promoted was never sold in stores. It was just a promotion that appeared on her Instagram, and that was back on April 1st when she posted it. Now we are 11 weeks on from that, and Bud Light sales are still reeling. Of course, we have seen boycotts in the past. They come, they go. Why do you think this one has persisted for so long?
I think this one picked up a lot of speed really quickly, and Bud Light is the kind of thing that you do buy in bulk for parties, for events. So I think that they did it a month before Memorial Day. It was still fresh in everyone's mind when Memorial Day being one of the biggest beer sale weekends around, July 4th being another one. So I think that we need to see what's going to happen in the next few weeks. And, it's interesting. It really, from a branding perspective, I think it's wonderful what they did from an inclusivity perspective. From a branding perspective, I think they might have wanted to know their audience a little better. It's one thing to want to show inclusivity, and I'm all for that 100%. Your audience, the people who drink Bud Light, are not the first audience you would target or think of when you think of inclusivity necessarily. And so, I question it from the very beginning in terms of just how is this going to affect the average Bud Light drinker. I totally understand what they're trying to do, and I totally respect what they were trying to do. But from a strictly branding perspective, I'm not sure that it was as thought through as it could have been, and I don't think they obviously didn't expect this kind of backlash.
No, they certainly did not. Bud Light is obviously part of the Anheuser-Busch family, and while we're seeing the Bud Light sales falling, we're seeing Anheuser-Busch revenues still rising. They're up 13% over year. And I don't think many people realize that many of the brands that the company is responsible for includes not just Bud Light, but Michelob Ultra, Stella Artois, Natural Light. Why do you think that none of those other brands have suffered?
Because no one bothers to, in today's economy, in today's day and age, we see something on social media, we think, oh, let's boycott it. We'll buy another brand. They don't bother to do the most basic 1% of research, which would say, wow, this is all owned by the same company. We've seen that happen before. As a matter of fact, when this boycott first started, I believe there was a rock star, I'm not sure if it was Kid Rock or someone, who showed his fridge, and his fridge, he completely dumped out all his Bud Light and replaced it with another brand that Anheuser-Busch owns. So, it's sort of the social world we live in. It sounds great. Let's jump on this bandwagon without doing the most basic research to say, if you really want to hurt the company, maybe you shouldn't buy a brand that they also own.
And this is one of the brands that has been highlighted by anti-LGBTQ activists. We have seen boycotts launched against Target, for example, Kohl's, even Chick-fil-A in recent weeks because they hired someone to talk about diversity or to manage diversity, equality, and inclusion. Do you think that brands are going to be more cautious now as a result of these boycotts in their support for the LGBTQ plus community?
I don't think so, because at the end of the day, it's a very small segment. Bud Light is an extreme case right now, but in terms of Target, in terms of Chick-fil-A, it's a very small segment of people who will actually continue to boycott a brand. You know, you'll see, we're not gonna shop at Target. Well, you know what? Walmart might do something next week that you don't like either. Then what are you gonna do? Right. So a lot of these boycotts, they make great press. They look really good right in the beginning, but people tend not to follow through with it. Again, that's another reason why I'm really curious to see the results of the July 4th sales for Bud Light.
Yeah, we'll be watching that very carefully. Peter Shankman, really appreciate your thoughts today. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.